Dupont connectors are those things on the right-hand side there. And I use a lot. I use them a lot for breadboarding and that kind of thing. And they come in male and female varieties.
I'll be done.
Right. So you can buy a thing. Hang on. Let me embiggen myself. So you can buy one of these off eBay dead cheap, and it works on tiny wires, and the connectors come on this kind of thing, and you just wobble one off. This one's a male, these ones are female, and you just wobble one off the chain, stick a wire in that tiny little cradle that you saw on the mystery item photo, and there's a special crimpy tool. Don't know if you can see the profile there, but it folds the ears over the wire and then into the wire when you crimp it. So you just hold the wire in there and squeeze it down like that in a couple of places, and that's the connection. And then you can push it into the plastic housing, which clips onto this metal bit, and then you end up with these kind of things, which you may have seen before. But with these kits, you can put Dupont connectors on the end of a cable and another connector on the other end. So that's why I've got this kit. It's a lot easier to just use these, but if you want a specific length of cable or a different connector on the other end, sometimes it's good to have a kit. And you can make one of a particular length. You can even miss pins out. So, can anyone hear me still?
Yeah.
Oh, good. So what I have done in the past, I'd get a big connector like this with, I don't know what, 8 holes, and I put maybe two pins in and then a gap and then another 5, because then you can only put it in one way, if you see what I mean. So you can't misplug it. You know where to plug it because it's the only pattern that matches the socket. So it can be quite versatile with connections, but they are a bit wobbly. They can easily pull out, so quite good for prototyping and breadboarding. If you don't know what a breadboard is, that's a breadboard, and it's what you stick these in. Or don't, because I've probably poured glue over it. So you can see, I mean, it's a bit, it does hold it, but it is a bit wobbly. So yes, Dupont connectors. Now, the rabbit hole I went down from this. Well done, Robert. Was it you that got that spot on? Yeah, I think it was Robert. So a round of applause to Robert for guessing the mystery item.
Hello, Robert.
Have to be more mysterious next time. Yeah, so rabbit hole. I'll try and be interesting. Right, so that's the mystery object. Now, I went a bit mad and I started looking at all sorts of things. So on the left here, I don't know if anyone can see my mouse pointer.
That a Molex?
You can. There used to be a pen thing going on PowerPoint. I don't know where that is now. Oh, there it is.
That's
Right. So there's the Dupont. It's not working. Why didn't that pen work? pen. Ah, right. So there's the Dupont thing. This one here is a JST connector, which is what's on the chimp, and that's very much like the Dupont, but a slightly shorter chains of connector, but it works in exactly the same sort of way. And that's how big it is. And you solder one side of it to a circuit board. That gives you the male pins in a socket. So it's kind of male and female at the same time. It means the pins don't get bent very easily. And then this is the bit that goes on the wires, and the two just fit together in a specific way, so you can have polarity, and you know you're going to plug it in the right way.
Very cool.
So they're really useful for soldering PCBs and that kind of thing. So so that's all of that stuff. Terminal blocks are quite similar, except there's screws, a screw terminal. So you stick a wire in there, tighten the screw, and the bottom bit is soldered to the PCB. A bit more firm than the JST, but a lot easier to swap wires around if you're trying different things. So good for prototyping. I don't know what these are called. Maybe they're just terminal blocks, but I think everyone's seen one of those.
Chocblocks or something.
Sorry?
We used to call them Chocblocks.
A chop box.
Chocblocks, like bars of chocolate or something like that, or squares of chocolate.
Okay, yeah, it's a bit chocolatey. Yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea if that's an actual name for them, but that's what we always call them.
Okay. Well, that'll do. These are header pins, and the gap between these pins matches the gap between these pins of the terminal block and the JST. I think they're all 2.5 millimeters. I think, or it's actually 0.1 inch probably. And that's the same as breadboards and perf boards, and most often holes in circuit boards. So you can buy all sorts of PCBs, like boards like this of different shapes and sizes. I've shown you breadboards which are reusable. There's this kind of board with lots of holes in it, all at that 0.1 inch or 2.5 mil kind of pitch, but that side is all copper rails. So you can put components through one side and solder them on the other and break the track where you don't want the electricity to flow. So these are really versatile. And then there's the perf boards, which are just the resin coated paper type stuff, which all PCBs are made of, but without any conducting stuff on it. So I don't know, I haven't really found a use for that, but they used to just wrap wires around the legs of the components and basically stick things to the wood or the metal of whatever they were making. They would stick the components to that and just roughly twist and solder them together. There was no such thing as a PCB.
You used to get little wire wrap tools just to help you sort of really create a tight coil around the lead of the component.
Yeah, well, it looks incredible when you see these wire wrap looms, really complicated machines with thousands of wires going everywhere, all wrapped to these little pins.
Yes,
it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
But with PCBs nowadays, you can have 5-6 layers in a PCB, and each one can have different tracks going to doing different components and up and down between the layers. It's crazy complicated nowadays, just to try and cram everything into a smaller and smaller space.
So you call it the up and down bits would be vias, if I remember. And some places you could actually have a via only between 2 layers. What the places we got boards made, they were too cheap. You'd have a via all the way through the board, but some places you could get just via between 2 layers in like a 6-layer board. I think that was very expensive.
Mm. It really is 3D chess, isn't it?
Yeah.
I imagine. Yeah, what else? So I do quite a bit of prototyping. So I've never done production electronics. This here is a socket that you can put a chip in easily. So yeah, you put that on a PCB and solder this on, and it's quite easy to do because there's nothing to damage with heat. That gives you a socket that you can push a chip into, and if you fry the chip, you can just take it out and put a new one in. And you don't, because you're not soldering the chip directly, you can't damage it with heat, which can be bad for chips. And you can get versions of this with a little handle that you turn the handle over, and it's a 0 insertion force thing. So you don't even have to press the chip against the springs, which is interesting, I think. Yeah, there's some others here. These are Waco blocks. These are really good for joining wires, a bit like that Chocoblock kind of thing going on up there. I think we've all used banana plug terminals at school. Well, I call them banana plugs. Anyone else got a different name?
Banana plugs.
Yeah. And then there's these are called these Crimp terminals. I like these because they're particularly firm. But if you're going to use Crimp things, you can buy them in you can buy sets of these in B&Q. I think they're good for car stuff. Or maybe they used to be, but they come with a little ratchety kind of thing to crush these. They're absolute crap. You never get a good connection and they fall off and all sorts. But these are perfect for crimping those things. You see at the end, it's got yellow, blue, red dots. Just maybe if I did this. Yeah, one of these. It's good for wire stripping at this end, but I got it because it's got the perfect crushing thing for these spade terminals, and they're really good for electronics projects because you can just break and remake the connections really easily. So they're brilliant, and yeah, good for attaching leads to MOSFETs and that kind of thing. But then I got a bit I get a bit inventive sometimes, I suppose. It's quite interesting thinking about, I can't find my mouse at all. Oh, there it is. I got, oh, there you go. Right, so this lead here is for connecting 9-volt batteries to circuits, but you can actually use 2 of these as a connector. Themselves. You're not showing a picture. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so you can get 2 of those, and instead of connecting to the battery, just connect them to each other, and then you've connected 2 pairs of wires together. So one end of this could be a circuit, the other end of this could be a motor controlling the eyeball of a chimp. But rather than having to yank those JSTs out that are glued on, you could just split these again, and they're really quite difficult. It's mechanically quite good, and electrically really good. So these, in certain circumstances, are really good connectors between wires, not just between a battery and wires. I keep doing that. I've used headphone jacks and sockets for power. They're really good for power. Can I undo that? No. These phono jacks come in 2, 3, and 4 pole male connectors. So that means if you've got 4 wires you need to get, you get a 4 pole jack connector, and then you can make lovely connections using that. And I've recently done the same with the Ethernet as well, but instead of sending data down it, I've sent 12 volts and the serial down a pair of wires as well. So I only used 4 out of the 8 wires. But that 12 volts went through a surprisingly long amount of Ethernet cable. So I was sending it down to power some LEDs and an Arduino, and it went all the way down this huge amount of wire, and it's really thin, but 12 volts could get from one end to the other and power an Arduino. So it's a really interesting.
What does an Ethernet cable normally take in terms of?
I don't know, but 3.3 or 5 volts are normal logic levels. Okay. I don't know which one, or if they take either of those. I don't know. Worth Google maybe, but 12 volts can go for miles, it seems, down there, and still be useful at the other end. So that turned out to be a really good connector for the project. And here's back to this screen. You need hotkeys really. So that is. Oh, I haven't plugged it. Yeah, that's an Ethernet connector, but then you just solder this to a PCB, and yeah, just stick whatever you want down the different cables, and they're coloured, so it's quite easy to sort out which is which at the other end. That worked really well. And then I got to thinking, I started going a bit mad. Then I started thinking I could use things like that lawnmower connector, yeah, for power and that kind of stuff, which is what it's made for, and mains voltage kind of stuff. Because it can handle a lot of amps at 240 or more volts. But you could use this for, you know, just connecting something completely benign. Otherwise, you've got two contacts in there. It doesn't have to be 240 volts. You could stick 12 or 4, 5, 3.5, 3.3 volts. You could stick a serial connection with this awesome umphy connector on it, just for, well, giggles really, I suppose. And even the 3-pin plug, you could put power down that, as everyone does, but you could use this to, I don't know, have a SPI. Don't know how many. That's 4. Yeah, you could have. You could use these connections for anything, really. So it's quite interesting. I keep finding new connectors and seeing possible uses for it. So I'm quite interested. I'm interested if anyone else has used any connectors in a weird way, and if anything bad's happened. I can imagine someone finding something with one of these on the end, and it goes to a sensitive Raspberry Pi or something like that, and they plug it into the mains and totally fry the computer at the other end that's expecting a low voltage serial kind of thing. But that is a drawback, because people see this and see mains. But anyway, yeah. Well, that's the end of my little rabbit hole, I think. Stony silence.
Good rabbit hole.
Any thoughts about what my little rant?
Didn't rant, did you?
No? Oh, no. Ramble.
Okay.
Anyone impressed with my use of PowerPoint?
Well, you know, it took a few goes, didn't it? So.
Yeah, well, perfectionist.
I mean, you could have done different colours, I think. I looked away from the screen and you said, oh, and here's this one. And I didn't know what you were looking at.
That's a good point. I'm not going to be grumpy about that.
Right, let's do it again. And
I'll do it in the end. We now have a graphic designer in house.
Yeah. Yeah, we want animations. Star wipe on everything.
Yeah, for that electronics thing, for Genetic Moot in the Tech Club, These connectors are pretty cool because you've got the female end up there and a bullet thing crimped to wires, and you just push them together like that. And so the kids, I mean, they're quite big and meaty connectors. So I was thinking of doing that for the tech club, get some little kits so they can plug stuff in and see them light up or something like that. Anyway, loads of connectors. If you find any weird connectors, bring them in, send them or bring them into the Geekery, and we'll make a collection of weird connectors. Now that's probably the geekiest thing in the world, really. But yeah, more connectors, please.
How many connectors are there?
Oh, thousands. I'm sure there are thousands. There's probably quite a lot that aren't safe anymore, that have gone out of use, like this picture that you can't see here. There. But yeah, I bet there's loads of proprietary ones, ones that don't work anymore, and
that's a Frankenstein classic.
And oh, these ones are pretty cool. These are military ones. You've seen them on tanks, ships, aircraft, all sorts of things. Yeah, and you can see how many contacts are on there and how thick the cable coming out of the one at the side here. So you plug them in, and also these pins are different. That's a nice big thick pin. All of these are little pins, so that makes it impossible to plug in the wrong orientation. And also there's a slot here, which is probably a key to make sure that it goes in the right way as well. Or maybe an expansion thing. But then you screw it on as well. So it's covering all of the things that could go wrong, with a nice meaty connection to stop it being pulled out. Lots of so these are kind of ultimate connectors, because the military environment is quite harsh. Okay, awesome. And that's the end. That is the end of the rabbit hole, definitely. Thank you.
Cool. Very good.
That's fun.
Oh.